Here's a guy who thinks that atheism is falling apart.
Is hardcore naturalistic atheism falling apart at the seams? Well, Dr. Michael Guillen, who has a PhD in physics, mathematics, and astronomy from Cornell, he even taught physics at Harvard, shares his fascinating insights into this question. Take a look.
What I discovered along the way is that most of reality is not visible, not logical, and not even imaginable. Those aren't just words.
They're a whole word salad. To say that most of reality is not logical or imaginable is to effectively say that we can't say anything coherent about most of reality. I don't think this is true, but even if it is, that would be a poor argument for God, because if God is the reason most of reality is this way, then we can't say much about God that makes any sense either.
Let's take the first one. Why am I saying that most of reality is not visible?
It's probably because most of reality, depending on how you quantify most, neither emits nor reflects light within the visible spectrum.
One of the great discoveries of 20th century science is that 95% of the so-called observable universe is invisible to us. It's in the form of dark matter and dark energy.
This is a bit misleading. Dark matter and dark energy are not most of the universe. They are whatever is responsible for most of the gravity and the acceleration of the expansion of the universe that we observe. The universe is a lot more than just gravity and expansion.
Which, as you indicated, to this day, we just don't know what it is. We don't, zero. I mean, we don't even have a clue. Dark matter appears to be some new form of matter that doesn't reflect light, doesn't radiate light. It's an invisible form of material. We don't know what that is. We have some theories, but none of them have caught on. We are literally in the dark about dark matter.
Scientists aren't even sure that it is matter. They just infer that it might be matter from the fact that it interacts with things gravitationally like mass does.
Same with dark energy. I covered that story. I was at ABC News when that broke. I was at Harvard. And I knew the astronomers. They ended up getting the Nobel Prize for that discovery of dark energy that appears to be some kind of repulsive force. It's kind of an anti-gravitational force. It's causing the universe to not just expand, but to accelerate. It's almost as if dark energy is the foot on the pedal, on a gas pedal. It's causing the universe to accelerate outward. What it is, we have no idea. It's some kind of a repulsive force. So 95% of the universe is made up of these two great mysteries.
How do you come to that figure exactly?
When you look up at night and you look at the stars and you marvel at the galaxies, you're only looking at 5% of what's out there, Raj. 5%.
You're actually looking at far less than 5% because most of even the visible parts of the universe still cannot be seen just by looking up at the sky at night. You can't even see Uranus that way.
Now, I don't care if you would call yourself an atheist. You have to explain to me how it is that you can be so confident of your atheism if everything we know about the universe is based on only 5% of what's out there.
Well, first of all, the fact that we can see dark matter or dark energy obviously doesn't mean that we can't detect it or infer that it exists. The fact that scientists hypothesize that these things exist is based on their observable effects. Secondly, that's like asking me how confident I could be that married bachelors don't exist if I can only know about 5% of what's out there. I don't need to check every crevasse on every planet in the universe to make sure that there isn't a married bachelor hiding out in one in order to deduce that there aren't any out there.
We are completely ignorant about 95%. Is it possible that God somehow fits into that 95%?
We're obviously not completely ignorant about dark matter or dark energy because whatever those things happen to be, we know what their effects are.
The second thing, as I said, most of reality is not logical. I already hinted at some of the things that we've discovered about reality is that, in quantum mechanics especially, it's like black is white and white is black. True is false and false is true.
No, it isn't. If that were the case, then quantum mechanics couldn't be mathematically described at all. There wouldn't be a single equation describing quantum mechanics that agrees with observation and experiment if it were that self-contradictory. Also, even if this were true, what would that have to do with God?
It's as if odd is even and even is odd. That's that. In other words, if you try to understand the universe, if you're an atheist who relies on his mind and prides himself or herself on your mind, on your ability to reason rationally, you're missing out.
Is there a way to reason irrationally?
because normal reason, Aristotelian logic,
Aristotelian logic is obsolete. It was replaced by Boolean logic. Nonetheless, logic is still used in science, including in quantum physics.
is useless in trying to understand the universe that's out there, because the universe is mostly not logical.
How do you quantify that the universe is mostly not logical? If quantum physics were not logical, we wouldn't be able to say anything meaningful about it at all. Heisenberg's equation wouldn't be coherent, for example.
And then finally, not even imaginable. We talk about black holes, and we talk about pulsars and neutron stars and all these very exotic things that we believe are out there.
You say believe as though we haven't directly observed these things when we have. And even if we didn't observe them, we'd have to be able to imagine them to be able to believe they exist, so why are you bringing them up after saying that there are unimaginable things in the universe? Also, even if there are unimaginable things in the universe, what does that have to do with God?
We can't know for sure.
We have photographs of them. We can be as sure that they exist as we can be sure that galaxies exist.
Because they're too far out there.
Too far out there, pulsars, black holes, and neutron stars exist inside our own galaxy. We can be pretty sure that Andromeda exists, despite the fact that it's millions of light years away from the nearest black hole, pulsar, or neutron star.
We think they exist. Well, you can't even imagine the gravitational force of a black hole.
If we can't imagine it, how could we mathematically model it? If it's not imaginable, how is it calculable?
You can't even imagine the brightness of a massive black hole at the center of our galaxy.
It's pretty easy to imagine how bright a black hole is because they're not bright at all. They neither reflect nor emit visible light. The matter orbiting them emits a lot of radiation, but if it were unimaginable, then we wouldn't be able to represent it with numbers. I think this guy uses imaginable to mean being able to mentally picture something.
It's beyond our ability to imagine. So I ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Atheist, how can you be so confident that there is no God? How can you be so confident when everything you know is based on logic, which is useless?
In a sense, I agree that logic is useless with respect to God because God is not a recognizably coherent concept. However, if there is a God out there that can't be logically contemplated, I can't believe in that God because I would have no idea what it would mean to say that a God exists. I don't know how to believe that a claim is true if I can't understand what that claim is even saying.
And based on your eyes, which only sees 5% of what's out there. I think I would want to encourage my former fellow atheists to just open your mind a little bit. I did. I dared to do that. And when I dared to open my mind, science, my beloved science, pointed like a big finger to the existence of God. It's unavoidable. The only way you can, at this point, if you're being honest and you're being open-minded, the only way you can resist the idea that God exists is because you have some kind of a personal grudge.
How does science point to God? You haven't given an argument for that. Your argument so far has been effectively, you can't know that God doesn't exist. That is not an argument that he does exist. And even if I had some grudge against God, whatever it would even mean to have a grudge against an entity whose existence I can't even understand, why would that cause me to deny his existence? In what other context do people deny the existence of someone against whom they have a grudge?
And honestly, Raj, I've discovered that with Dawkins and Dennett and Harris and all the rest of them.
Apologists' knowledge about atheists seems permanently frozen in the year 2010.
When you talk to Dawkins, he'll tell you that he resented the fact that his parents forced him to go to Sunday school when he was a boy. And I guess even now in his 70s or 80s, he hasn't gotten over that.
Yes, I'm sure that's the entire reason why Dawkins is an atheist.
I mean, I have found that when I talk to my former fellow atheists, and I love them, I am not angry at them at all. I love them. I understand where they're at. I was there. I was one of them. I understand what it means to be blinded to the truth.
So you had a grudge against God?
Then what I discover is that they were harmed somehow. They were wounded somehow. Somebody said something to them that hurt them deeply, and now they just cannot bring themselves to believing in God.
So who hurt you? Why were you an atheist? This, by the way, is not at all the reason I'm an atheist. Nobody at all related to religion has hurt me in any way. I've been an atheist for as long as I've known that atheism was an option because from the beginning it immediately made more sense to me.
I had a post recently, and I think it just said it all. My social media post said, arrogance is a firewall that stands between many people and God. And I find that to be the case, especially with intellectuals. I was one of them. When you're an intellectual, it means you rely on your mind to understand everything. You pride yourself on your mind, on your IQ.
Should I be putting feels over reals instead? Would it be less arrogant of me to believe what feels true over what makes sense?
And so when you're in that state of being, when you're an intellectual like that, arrogance is usually comes along with it. It takes a real effort to be an intellectual and to be humble.
It has always seemed to be the opposite to me. To be a good intellectual, you have to follow what Richard Feynman said. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. The idea that you can forego the rigor of logic and empiricism without fooling yourself seems much more arrogant to me.
Right? And so it took me decades because I'm still an intellectual, but it took me decades to become humble. And there's no mistake that the Bible says you have to become like a child in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, right? And into the kingdom of God. Because you have to humble yourself. You have to get to the point where you say to yourself, you know what? I don't have all the answers. And I never will. And my beloved science doesn't have all the answers and never will. That kind of humility then opens your mind, opens your heart, and then you see, yeah, this universe is amazing. Universe is a creation. It's not an accident. It's a creation.
So your argument for God's existence is that he clearly exists if you think about things like a child does? To everyone who helps me out on Patreon, you're a big help. Thanks so much.